All right, we're live. Let's roll. Welcome to Double Fries No Slaw. It is April 11th. Again, I don't know why I give the date every time we start this, but I guess that's kind of the calling card on this show now. But it is the day after the spring game. It's Masters Sunday. Richie's got his polo. I saw you with your pimento cheese over there earlier today. Your Masters hat on. Masters Sunday, day after the spring game. We're happy to be with you guys. We've got a couple of great guests on tonight. First from The Athletic, Andy Staples, and then second from Knowles 247, Brendan Sonnone, talking all things FSU football, breaking down the spring game. So let's jump right into it. Double Fries No Slaw brought to you, as always, by Guthrie's in Tallahassee. You can visit both their locations at 1818 West Tennessee Street and 2550 North Monroe. Check them out and get your box. Order it. Double Fries No Slaw. Let's get right to our first guest. We appreciate him coming on. One of the first show we ever did, Andy, was on Andy Staples from The Athletic, and you can add something new to your LinkedIn bio, guest coach of the FSU football spring game 2021. How's it going,
That's
Andy?
Right. That's right. I called the only touchdown of us media folks. So Mckenzie Milton called it. So we'll get to that. He when Mckenzie Milton tells you to call something, listen to him. That is the best piece of advice I can probably give. But no, it was awesome, and I really appreciate Mike Norvell and Adam Fuller and Kenny Dillingham and Chris Marv and Derek Satterfield from the sports info department at FSU. They helped out so much, and it was a really fun educational experience. So right off the bat, I just want to thank them for that, because I'm not sure anybody else would have let me do that. And the SEC actually let me try being an official at a spring
I remember
game
that. I was talking.
I was Georgia, and it was a similar thing where you just come out of it with so much more empathy for the people that you're dealing with. Yeah, you come up with a lot more empathy for the officials out of that one, and this one a lot more empathy for the play callers. I mean, yeah, we're gonna rip the play calling and all that, but it's crazy when you actually do it and then you see the results of it. And I was laughing this morning because, we always laugh at the coaches when they say, "Oh, I got to watch the film." So yesterday I leave Doak Campbell Stadium thinking, I'm a genius, man. My first call is on defense, and we got a sack on that play. And then my last call is on offense, and we scored a touchdown on that play. Well, I went back and watched that sack, that first defensive play. And I had called like a fire zone blitz. I wanted to, just thinking about how this works, because we were playing with a little second and third team, offensive line. And these are guys that don't always get to play together. And they definitely don't get a ton of 11-on-11 reps together. So they're probably not going to communicate that well. So I wanted something that would confuse them. So a fire zone is one where, you've got a guy who's on the line dropping back. You've got two guys coming in from the middle of the defense. And so I figured, okay, one of those second level guys is going to get home. And I watched the film and realized I had run a 5-man rush into a 7-man protection. We should have gotten shredded on that play. The only thing that saved our butts was the back went the wrong way, did not see the nickel, Jamie Robinson, come flying through. If the back picks him up, Tate Rodemaker has his choice of open receiver.
Yeah.
But
all the guys.
But fortunately, Jamie got home and it worked. And it's just one of those things where sometimes it's not you have a great call, it's somebody makes a great play. Or somebody messes up. And in this case, it was somebody messes up. And then 2 plays later, like on the third down play, when I was calling defense, I called the same blitz again. I didn't call it all 3 plays, but I did call it on
2 out of 3.
Because I thought, okay, well, also it was a different look if they had trips to one side. So it might look like a different blitz to the line or to the quarterback. So I was fine with that. But in this case, they had a screen called against it, and it was that was a perfect call.
Yeah.
But I had a defensive tackle recognize the screen, jump up, and bat it down. So, I mean, that's just a player making a play, doing what he's coached to do.
They made you look good, is what you're saying.
They did. They were awesome. I want to thank the players too, because they were so nice to us. I mean, we're morons. We don't know what we're doing out there. They were so cool.
Talk to us about I mean, have you ever heard of anything like this? Like guest media coach, like talk to us about like when they reached out to you and said like, hey, we want you to come do this. What were like, obviously you said, yeah, like who's going to say no to this? But like, what were your thoughts?
They've done it before. Like schools have done it before, but it's basically you get to stand on the sidelines. You don't actually get to do anything. And like they hand you a call sheet. So here's my call sheet. So we got 10 offensive plays, 8 defensive calls. You know, it's basic, and it's like the basic terminology for these plays, not Florida State's terminology. So we're not like
Madden level terminology.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
It was very similar to what you get out of Madden. So if you play a lot of Madden, and I got an 11-year-old, so I do get dragged into Madden games quite frequently. It looks pretty familiar to you, but the difference is when you have that headset on and there's 8 million people in your ear and there's somebody in front of you going, we need something now because they want to go up tempo. There's so much pressure. And it's just, the ones I feel for the most of the defensive coaches, I was lucky when I was calling the D, we got them in a hole and it kept them from going up tempo. They didn't get a big gain on me. So it kept them from because they gave us 3 up tempo calls. There was an up tempo call for an inside zone, one for a bunch formation quick pass, and one for 4 verts. And I was scared to death that they were going to gain 6 or 7 yards on me, go up tempo, and just, I wasn't going to be able to play in, because when they gave me my headset, it was before our time. And so I was listening to the actual Florida State coaches as they were making their own calls. And it was a goal line period, or not goal line. Sorry, it was a 2-minute drill period. So everything was high tempo. And I'm on the defense channel, and it's just a fire drill every play because the offense is going so fast. And I was like, I don't know. I don't think I can do this. But I was lucky. We had them, by the way. So Andrea Adelson was my partner. She's from ESPN. She strung together a beautiful set of calls. She had a 3rd and 2 where she ran a counter, gained 14 yards down the left sideline on that counter. She immediately she starts yelling, bowl, 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 which is the bunch formation quick pass tempo call. And the offense gets right up to the line. And you can see like the defense, Jeff Cameron and Gene Deckerhoff clearly have not made a call. Like, because they are looking at the sideline like, what do you want us to do? What do you and the defensive tackle is getting stances because they're like, oh well, I guess we're here.
We're playing here.
But the linebackers and the DBs are just wandering around like looking at each other. And I'm like, we are gonna score. We're gonna score. And then the next thing you hear is a whistle, flag up, false start. Killed the drive. Killed it.
The speed of that offense and the defense having no clue what they were doing is pretty much how we looked the whole game against Louisville last year. So we were used to kind of the defense not knowing what was going on there.
But it's hard. I mean, you look at, so Mike Norvell had the team over to his house on Friday night. That's the first time since he's been the head coach at Florida State he's had the team to his house. He got hired in December 2019.
No.
And think about it that way. They've been, in this weird situation. And I realize that, there were other first-year coaches last year. All this does is make me appreciate the job that the first-year coaches who had really good first years, like Jeff Hafley at BC and Sam Pittman at Arkansas and Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss. Like, wow. I don't know how they did it. I really don't, because they were under such difficult circumstances. And you think about it, I was talking to Coach Storms, the strength coach, and he just had so little time with them. Like, you don't get to know these guys. You have no idea how to, and all the, the position coaches, they don't know them well enough to be able to coach them, because you need to know how to push a guy's buttons. You need to go what he responds to. Is this a person who wants, harsh criticism because that pumps him up and he's like, I'm going to prove you wrong? Or is it a person you need to take a little softer touch with? And this is the sort of thing that you find out through a spring practice and through summer workouts with the strength coaches and that sort of thing. They didn't have any of that. And so I think that's a situation that'll be better. I think the injuries at quarterback really they made last year pretty non-functional on offense. I don't think that's going to be a problem this year. Jordan Travis looks pretty comfortable. Mckenzie Milton is Mackenzie Milton. I mean, the dude knows how to play. So if he's physically capable of playing, he can play too. So it really does feel like they got two guys that would be really comfortable running the offense. And I'm not sure they had a single guy comfortable running the offense going into last season.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we definitely want to get into, the quarterback play from yesterday, some highs and lows. But you mentioned the dinner with Coach Norvell Friday night. I wasn't able to get to Tallahassee, so I was watching the ESPN feed, and Andrea had mentioned that, it wasn't just a show up on Saturday and you guys get to call plays, but you guys actually had a coaches meeting Friday night. Who was in that meeting and what did that look like? Did they say, hey, this is the plays you can call and this is it, or kind of freestyle and do your own thing?
It was just us and Mike Norvell. And he was basically saying, he's going through a lot of the procedural stuff. Like, your headset, you're going to have an offense channel and a defense channel. Make sure you're on the right channel. Make sure you don't do what I did and accidentally hear what the offense is going to call before you call your first defensive play. But then it was, how to call tempo, how to, what you need to do if the offense is calling tempo and you're on the defense. And then he kind of took us through what his process, what it would be for a game. And he showed us like what the, cause he has a board on their meeting room wall that essentially mimics his call sheet for a game. So you'll see the scripted plays, which would be the first couple series. And then you'll see what he would do for certain down and distances. This was blank now, but in a game week, it would be filled. And it was really a nice look behind the curtain. Cause different coaches have different things. You had the dude who coached the Giants, McAdoo, who had the Cheesecake Factory menu as his call sheet. Mike Leach uses a note card, and Lincoln Riley uses like a little folded up piece of paper. So it depends on the person. And it's interesting because Norvell's is about I'm holding a legal size sheet of paper. That's the one they gave us. His is about like that, but he said usually he's got it almost memorized by the time the game comes around. So there's not a lot of looking down at it. He kind of knows what's on there. But it was good to get a window into that because that's the sort of thing that we don't get to see that much. And, I having the headset on was really fascinating to me just because you don't realize how many different people are talking. You've got the head coach is talking, you've got your coordinator, you've got a position coach on the field who, if your coordinator's in the box, you have a position coach on the field who's making sure that the right personnel are in at any given time. And so that, that's Chris Marv on defense for us yesterday. And, without him, we would be sunk, like I sent 10 out on a field goal block team. They're like, count it, Andy. I'm trying.
That's something Florida State fans have seen a lot of the past few years that we kind of make fun of, but at least all right. So even Andy has trouble with that. But you mentioned the quarterback
from the sideline to make that count under pressure.
I bet, man. And you mentioned the quarterbacks. The reports from spring have kind of made it sound like, Travis has been the most consistent. And some would even say that Milton was even a little behind Tate heading into this game. But, Milton made 3 beautiful throws off the top of my head. I'm sure you can picture them all.
That one down the seam, the left hash one. Oh my Lord. I was behind that play. I was on the sideline behind them. And so you could see it kind of develop and you saw the receiver spring open and he just the behind the ball view of that throw was gorgeous. It was like, wow, that's the Mckenzie Milton I remember. And so it was pretty cool to see, but I'm with you. Travis definitely seems the most in control. I would think Milton is probably number 2 there. And then, we see what happens with Rodemaker. And obviously when Chubba Purdy gets back, because I think he's going to be behind, but they probably did the right thing having him rehab through the spring because it feels to me like they brought him back a little too early in the fall to try to get him some playing time. And that, complicated the injury. And so just get him completely healthy and let him work in fall camp and see what happens.
Yeah. And then, Florida State's recruiting class this year wasn't what we're used to, especially when Jimbo was just pulling in top 5 classes left and right. But a couple freshmen stood out. And what were your thoughts on Malik McLean?
That guy, yeah.
Like he was a 4-star from Alabama, but he was that catch from Milton.
Yeah, he's one of the few dudes that are going to play quite a bit. I think that were still playing when I was calling plays, and So hit a slant to him was what set up the game-winning touchdown for my team. He gained 14 yards on a slant on 2nd and 10, and I had called the same play 2 plays in a row. Geno English had tried to get the back out of the backfield on the first one and just thrown it a little bit low. And so I said, just do it again, because that play had a lot of different options on it for the QB if he just saw something pre-snap. And so the corner just backs off of McLean right before the snap. And so I knew he was going to be open, and Geno hit him, and it was awesome. And so it was McLean looks like a dude. He's 6'4", probably about 200 pounds, and he's a freshman. So we'll see when he has to play against Notre Dame DBs week 1, but he looks like he can contribute right away. And, he looked and felt different watching him play.
Talk to me about FSU's O-line, a position group that has struggled not as of late for as long as we can remember. Right?
Well, it's hard to say because a lot of those guys were hurt. A lot of the guys who were going to play weren't playing yesterday, and they were hurt. So it's pretty hard to get a gauge on it. That's the issue. Now, from a body type standpoint, they've got a lot of tackles who are longer, leaner. Look like they can move a little bit. So I think that's good. But it's really hard to say what that line's going to look like because you didn't see all of the guys who are going to play. Now, I felt really bad. There was a second string tackle who had to play against Jermaine Johnson on the first series. Jermaine Johnson is a dude now. That first rep, the hands, the punch, this poor tackle just like lifted off the ground. I was like, wow, okay. But think about this. That says something about Florida State, and it says something about Georgia, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That Jermaine Johnson, who is going to be in a rotation. Now, here's the thing. He wasn't going to be a backup at Georgia. He was going to be in a rotation where he would have been an important part of the defense. But he wanted to be in a situation where he's going to be more like an every down type guy. And so at Florida State, he will be. The difference is in Florida State, he walks in as the best player on the roster. And so that tells you how loaded a team like Georgia is, which is a team that should hope to compete for national titles. And it tells you where Florida State is relative to where it was, say, in 2013 or 2014.
Yeah. We've had a lot of people. We had who was on? Oh, Mike Farrell. And when we asked about a standout player, he said Jermaine Johnson. Like he said that would be the guy that out of the transfer portal, outside of potentially Milton, dude. Right? Like yeah, Johnson just being that guy. If you had, okay, we'll go back to the quarterbacks real quick. But if you had to call a starter now in the spring, based on your day and a half of being around these guys, who are you calling as the starter for Notre Dame?
I would say if the season started today, they'd start Travis. But if Mckenzie proves that he's healthy enough to play, which is still probably something that the coaching staff is going to want to be absolutely sure of before they put him out there in a game, I think there's a good chance he could win that job in camp. But it would be a climb. He would have to climb past Travis to do that, because Travis, like I said, seems very comfortable operating on offense.
Yeah, that's been the report. That's been what we've heard, is that just the understanding of the offense, which makes a lot of sense. Milton being new there on campus and Travis had been in it for a couple of years. Did you have much interaction with Gene or Jeff Cameron? I know you were with Andrea a lot, but did you have much interaction with those guys? Let's talk about that.
Jeff
They're like Tallahassee
done a lot of stuff together. And Jeff, Jeff and I both do shows on Sirius XM. So we've done shows together. And like I went on his show for about 30 minutes on Friday just to kind of pump this up and mostly so Jeff could pre-tape a segment so he could get out there and get to our coaches meeting. But yeah, no, it was a lot of fun. And Gene I had not met before. And obviously Gene's a legend, I was afraid Gene was going to bring a bunch of Brady stuff with him, from his other gigs. So Gene is amazing to me because nobody makes a 3-yard gain sound more exciting than Gene.
Oh my goodness.
No one on earth. Hand off to Dalvin Cook, breaks through the line, and he's churning and churning and burning, and he's brought down 2nd and 7.
The best thing about Gene is he never loses that passion at all. What's funny is we've had you and Andrea on here, but we've never had Gene or Jeff on here. So go figure the luck. But We've had Jeff and Gene both on the Big Three roll up, and we had 3 weeks in a row. We had Mick Hubert, Joe Zagacki, the Miami play-by-play guy, and Gene Eckerhoff on. And the Big Three roll up. Like we don't, we weren't looking for like the rah FSU.
How did Gene and Silk get along? That's what I want to know.
Oh no, it was back to back. Oh no, he was cool with him. He was but anyway, so we interviewed Mick and we interviewed Joe, and it was very much just like, tell us about your background. How'd you get into radio? We didn't talk about like the upcoming season at all. Like it just wasn't, that's not the vibe that we typically go for. Right. We want to know more the backstory and stuff. That's not what we did with Gene. Gene wanted to talk about it's, he came on Gene Eckerhoff of, IMG Radio, blah, blah. Well, boys, thanks for having me. It's 87 days until kickoff, and I can't wait till toe hits. And we were just like, this is not the right interview.
Man, the man knows when to flip the switch. And he's because they introduced us to the team at the deal at Mike Norvell's house, and he starts going through one of the calls from the Choke at Doak. And I think that was for me and Andrea's benefit because we were in Florida, but we were in high school at the time, so no, nothing to do with that one. But it was funny because the players are kind of looking around like, I don't think they know what game he's talking about.
They've got no clue either. This isn't like something that Jameis did or even like P-Dub. Like we're talking all the way back,
I mean, 94, I'm a junior in high school.
Yeah.
when that happened.
Did anybody give you a hard time about both of you guys being Gators or anything? I mean, Gene's a Gator too. So I mean, like, come on.
Yeah, he is. He is. Everybody was really cool about it. And here's the thing. They've been through so much stuff. It's not, they understand, I think, that whole deal is just for fun right now, and I've never been one to be like, oh, I went to Florida. Florida State stinks. Tallahassee stinks. I never got that. Like I always had a blast when I went to Tallahassee when I was in college. And, if you were involved in, I was a human tackling dummy for Florida for a bit. If you were involved in that at all, you respected Florida State because they were so freaking good. Yeah. I mean, their players were amazing. So that was, we were joking around. I was joking around with Jeff because we were talking about Randy Moss being there. And he's like, can you imagine if Randy Moss had stayed? And I'm like, I don't want to imagine if Randy Moss has stayed, because if Randy Moss has stayed, I don't get a national championship ring. So, yeah, it's a lot of fun, and I just thought it was so nice of them to let us do that and to give us that experience, because it will help me not just covering Florida State, but it will help me in my job for the rest of my life, because I've had that experience and I understand a little bit better what that person is dealing with as they're calling a play. Yeah. And ditto for the SEC. Let me do the officials thing 2 years ago. I understand that so much better. And it helps you when you see a call to understand how the call got made, why it got made, what the mechanics were of the officials and who made it and what they did next and all that. So I cannot thank the staff enough for being so cool, because they could have just done the thing where we stood there on the sideline, but they just, and then the ice bath, the Powerade bath.
I wanted that.
It was a pretty nice touch.
I want to ask about that. Before I do, if you guys haven't seen this, I'll play the clip real quick. And I mean, I know you've seen it, but like if you guys are watching, haven't seen this was yesterday, and then we'll talk about it in just a sec.
Oh, they both got the Gatorade bath.
Oh, well, Deckerhoff is over here with the white hair and the white shirt. He escaped it. Adelson.
Yeah, so it wasn't Gatorade. We don't do Gatorade on our campus. I know that's the rivalry thing.
Coca-Cola campus, that's right.
Yeah, Powerade bath. Josh Newberg tells the story of when he first started covering Florida State. He walked onto the field with a Gatorade, and Odell Higgins walked up to him and slapped it out of his hand and said, "You don't drink that here." So anyway,
like wearing Adidas at Oregon.
It is, yeah. I assume you weren't expecting that this weekend.
No. It's like the first few drops hit you and you're like, huh? And then it's all just cascading down.
Yeah.
You're like, oh my God, I just got dunked. What? But it was really cool. And fortunately, because I was driving home right after the game, but I had stayed Friday night, so I had my bag with my clothes in the truck. So I changed as soon as I got
Yeah.
there. So I didn't have to go home soaked. But it was just a really fun day. And I am so grateful that I got to do it because, I have a story coming out in The Athletic. It'll be out Monday morning. So probably about the same time as this podcast.
Yeah, when this drops.
And so you can get a little more, inside what we were doing. And I've got a couple more Florida State stories coming out in the next few weeks. We do our State of the Program series where we examine every program in the FBS. And I've got Florida State. That one comes out later this month, which will be a deep dive into basically the entire depth chart. And it's one of those things where this is a program kind of in transition, and I think they know that. And it's different. It's different because none of these guys were there, other than Odell and a couple other coaches. They've not had the highs of being at Florida State, but they weren't there for the lows of Willie Taggart and the end of the Jimbo Fisher era. So all they're trying to do is do a job, win games, and bring them back to what they're supposed to be. And I think they appreciate that. I think that coaching staff appreciates what the mission is. And it's not easy. It's really not going to be easy. But the thing is, given all the circumstances that they took over with, they should have some time. And I think with time they can make it work.
We talked about that. I want to bring you back on before the season starts and after your article comes out. So sometime between then to kind of talk about where Florida State's at going into the season. So I don't want to dive too deep into the fall just yet. So yeah, it was really cool to see you guys out there yesterday, and I'm glad they reached out to you, and I'm glad they reached out to somebody that I know and I'm good friend or good buddies with, so that we get you on here to talk about it.
It's my pleasure.
But we talked about this. I had said something to you, and I should have gone back and listened to the show, but I didn't remember it until like seconds before you came on. I was talking with Richie about you just before, but you had talked about potential, or for some reason we talked about in the last time you were on about expanding the playoff, right? And I have never been a massive fan of the idea of that. And I think I've talked myself into becoming a big fan, and I want to tell you why, and then I want you to tell me what your thoughts are.
Okay.
But
all right,
I think bowl season has become rendered irrelevant, and the only way to save that is by expanding the playoffs, and that'll essentially make the bowl season more exciting because we'll get more good games at the end of the year. Because nobody wants to watch a Florida team that just puts up 1 billion points on offense, limp into a game against Oklahoma and get their heads blown.
Yeah, where none of the best players want to play, and I know I'm with you there. My thing is, and the reason I have said all along, go to 8. And I don't think they should go past 8. I know that if they go to 8, people are like, go to 16. I think 8's the right number because you remain the most exclusive playoff in sports, but you get you hit the right number. And the reason I say the right number is it's bad for business when every team west of the Rockies thinks they're out of it in week 3.
Yeah.
Like that shouldn't happen. And so the Pac-12 needs to participate. The group of 5 needs a chance to participate. And if you go 8 teams, you go 5 Power 5 champs get in, 2 at-larges, highest ranked group of 5 champ. That keeps everybody engaged. That makes, and you say, oh, well, but then the SEC championship won't matter. Yeah, it will. If the team that's not supposed to wins it because they're going to make the playoff, the team that was supposed to win it's going to make the playoff, and somebody else ain't going to make it.
Yeah.
Or, because you get bid thieves. But think about the Pac-12 championship last
year. In a lot of years, the SEC loser would make it anyway. Like Florida would have made it this year, So I mean,
absolutely. Well, I don't know.
Well, not with the loss to LSU.
It might depend on how that game goes. And so that's what you say is, well, did that render the regular season irrelevant? No, because the loss to LSU certainly mattered for that Florida team. But think about the Pac-12 championship game. Completely irrelevant last year. There was no reason to watch it if you weren't a USC or an Oregon fan.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? It's for a playoff berth in that other one. And you can say, well, those teams don't belong. How do you know? Like last year, there was no non-conference. You don't know who belongs and who doesn't. So I think that'll be more fun. And people always will point to the 1-8 games. Well, I don't want to see that game. Yeah, but you do want to see the 4-5 game. You do want to see the 3-6 game. 4-5 would have been Notre Dame, Texas A&M. How great would that have been? 3-6 would have been Oklahoma, Ohio State. That would have been awesome.
Yeah, I mean, you sold me on it, so I'm kind of all in with it. Are you going to be in Tallahassee for that Notre Dame game? Have you gotten your assignments yet, or know what's going on?
Oh, we won't know. We don't know yet how travel is going to work. I've got my second shot coming up later this month, and so I think we're going to be able to get around this season, but I don't know exactly how that's going to work or what games I'm going to be going to yet. So we got to probably wait till probably June, July before we make those decisions, because we just have to see what we're allowed to do. Because a lot of it is, what will the schools let you do? Will they let you interview the players in person, that sort of thing? A lot of schools aren't doing that yet, but are planning on doing that in the next few months. So
right.
It's not worth it for me to go to a game if I can't talk to anybody in person. So,
yeah.
But if that changes, then yeah, I want to get out there. So it was nice. It was nice to get out of the house and get up to Tallahassee. I took my COVID test. I have a negative COVID test and got up there and masked up. And, but it was nice to travel again. It was weird checking into a hotel. I was like, oh, okay.
First time I've done it in a long time too.
Yeah. So
we've got you a Guthrie's tailgate if you come up for that one on that Sunday night. So talk about, plug real quick. The article will drop tomorrow morning on the spring game. I'm sure you'll talk about it in your podcast. You talk to us about you already said it, but you can find his work at The Athletic. Talk to us about where you write, where they can find your podcast, and then we'll get you out of here. Thanks for hanging out, man.
Yep. So theathletic.com, we love our subscribers, and feel free to subscribe. The good thing about us is we cover everything. We have somebody on every NFL team, every NBA team. We cover a ton of college football. So we probably cover a lot of the teams you love. We do, English soccer, Italian soccer, all that stuff too. And so I just think it's the best deal going in sports. We usually have a deal for new subscribers. The regular price isn't bad either. It's $7.99 a month. And it's more than you can possibly read in a day. So you've got that. And then the Andy Staples Show is the name of the podcast. You can get it wherever you get podcasts, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and that is free. So feel free to subscribe, rate, review. We love you. And I love you guys. Thank you for having me. I wear my double fries, no slaw t-shirt very proudly.
We appreciate it. I do too. My wife's pretty sick of me wearing it, but like, at least you probably get less crap.
Shirt. It's perfectly. I love it.
You can pick that up at big3rollup.com if you'd like to get one for yourself. So Andy, Coach Staples, thanks so much for hanging out with us tonight, man. You have a good one.
Thank you, guys.
See you, buddy. Andy was great. It was fun watching the spring game the other day. The Power Bath was fantastic. I'm excited for the article to come out. He did a feature on the Big 3 Roll-Up Network and stuff a few months ago now. Did a great job with it. And so I'm excited for that to come out. From one legend to another, we will go right into our next guest. All the way from Tallahassee, Florida, Brendan Sonnone. Brendan is a host on the Bench podcast. He's a host on the Worst Sock Show and my favorite, Bourbon on a Budget. So, Brendan, how you doing tonight?
I'm oversaturated with podcasts, and I'm honored to be infiltrating this one as well.
Happy to be on one more. So thanks for coming on. Oh, also of Knowles 247. Sorry, he works with New.
Yeah, that's the main gig.
yeah. Shout out all your side gigs instead of the main gig. You did not get a Powerade bath yesterday. We were talking to Andy about his. Maybe next year we'll get you one. Maybe UCF will invite you to be their guest coach.
I doubt it. They don't even fulfill some basic interview requests I send their way. Apparently, being an alumnus doesn't really carry a whole lot of weight. I don't know.
Talk to us about what you saw yesterday out of the spring game, and let's just start from the top. Talk to us about the quarterbacks and what you saw there.
First off, I want to say hi to Richie. I feel like we're bros, but we've never actually talked before. Just tweet at each other all the time, and I'm a big fan of Richie's beard as well. So hey, Richie.
How's it going, Brandon? Glad to have you here, man. Like you said, I feel like we interact on the timeline all the time, but we've never had you on here before.
Yeah, it apparently around the New Year's, the Twitter did this thing where it's you're people you interact with the most in your main circle, did this algorithm thing, and Richie was in mine, and I think vice versa. And I was like, wow, I need to interact with more people, I guess.
Two Orlando guys, who enjoy talking Florida State football. So
it makes sense. It makes sense. So yeah, the spring game. I will be honest. I went into yesterday's spring game with this sense of shocking that I'm going to say that I was a little. TJ will be shocked that I said I was a little anxious, but I did have this feeling of, oh man, they have all these recruits coming, and I'm sure we'll get into that. But they did a really great job kind of working around the system and allowing recruits or fans into the stadium. And it was an amazing accumulation of talent. And I was worried that they were going to have all these great players show up. It was all this hype. You could feel the buzz like as the day was going on. There was the weather and stuff, and it became clear like they were going to actually play the game. All the recruits are showing up. And I start thinking, like, they have not looked very good the last couple of times I've seen them in practice. What if they kind of put up a dud here and it's just kind of boring and the offense doesn't do anything and just is kind of middling product? But that isn't what happened. It was fun. Mckenzie Milton and Jordan Travis both took turns making some big plays down the field. There were some good highlight reel catches from young receivers like Malik McLean, Joshua Burrell. And then the defense played well in spurts too. So it was like what you want to see from a spring game, guys. Like, I don't want to take too much away from it, but it was entertaining. It was a good product. There are things to certainly feel, I guess, if you're a Florida State fan, I feel good about moving forward.
Yeah, and I think one of the smartest things Mike Norvell did this spring was opening the scrimmages to the public, because as you noted, that allows recruits to come, and they can't really go anywhere else. And we had a lot of big names in Tallahassee. Obviously, Travis Hunter, we'll get to him in a second, but another headliner, quarterback commit Nico Marchio. He was in town, but he wasn't the only quarterback in town. We had AJ Duffy and MJ Morris also in town, two other four-star quarterbacks. I believe we only have one spot left at quarterback. What's the takeaway from Duffy and Morris? And do either one feel pressured to maybe secure their spot before the other one takes it?
There is certainly a little bit of musical chairs going on there, and this is kind of how quarterback recruiting in general works usually. And Josh Newberg on the bench talks about this a lot. Like it's domino effect. So dominoes and musical chairs, all kinds of games that are played with quarterback recruiting. But yeah, there is this window. And I think AJ Duffy told us that he's looking to make a decision in the next, I want to say 3 weeks, and then MJ Morris by the end of May. So we're talking about, both their timelines are getting moved up here a little bit. Now, AJ Duffy still has one more visit planned, I believe, to Michigan State. He's already seen Arizona State, which is kind of considered the clubhouse leader, but yeah, it's going to be really interesting. It was kind of cool to have all three quarterbacks there on campus at the same time. One dynamic that I noticed from when I was downstairs, and I helped out a little bit with the recruiting guys, just basically tried to corral the recruits because there were so many that Zach Blosing kind of stepped up or set up all this really, again, like maybe 40, 50 recruits in one area with Travis Hunter and Nico Marchio kind of being the headliners. But you would think like, hey, Nico is being protective of his spot as the singular quarterback in this class right now, wouldn't be super like warm and gracious to the other quarterbacks being there. That wasn't the case at all. AJ Duffy shows up. Nico Marchio goes, finds him. I think was probably texting with him, finds him, brings him over to the group of all the other big time players that were there, including Travis Hunter, and kind of introduces him to everyone, was like legitimately excited to see him. That was a really cool dynamic. That's something that stuck with me. And I don't have the juice that like Josh or Zach have with recruiting stuff. That's not my main gig. But just seeing that interaction made me think like, okay, like Nico's definitely being warm and embracing of AJ Duffy. And I think that would probably go a long way of establishing that relationship and that dynamic. So if I had to pick right now, I would think of the two, whether it's MJ Morris or AJ Duffy, especially since AJ is committing first. I think there's a good chance that it would be AJ Duffy right now, would be kind of my guest prediction.
Yeah, and it's funny, man. I'm not sure, and I know Travis Hunter loves Florida State and loves Tallahassee. I'm not sure there's a recruit in the country that loves Tallahassee more than Nico Marchio does right now. When I was scrolling through the timeline this morning, it was just a bunch of like random Florida State fans I follow with pictures with Nico. So I know he was just making his way around Tallahassee, big time celebrity. I know TJ got him to do the chop at the baseball game a few weeks ago. That kid just loves Tallahassee, and he keeps coming back. He must be a platinum flyer on whatever airline he chooses.
And he's going to keep coming back, apparently. Like we got him on the bench. Zach did a one-on-one with Nico last week, and not to do a shameless plug, but shameless plug. Like, dude, please check it out. Like, for your listeners that do want to listen to it, because it was really insightful. Like, it wasn't just this boring kind of cookie cutter interview. Nico Marchio did break some news for different things, and was one like really thoughtful for anyone, but especially like for a teenager. And you kind of understand why he is becoming the bell cow of this class, because he is really passionate about Florida State, and especially the coaching staff with Mike Norvell and his relationship with Kenny Dillingham. And also he's just very mature. But he said, Richie, that he was planning on, or at least toying around with the idea of, is where the frequent flyer miles come in, of coming to Tallahassee for multiple official visits, not his official visits, because he can only take one technically, but just to kind of show up in Tallahassee, be at Florida State when there's other official visit weekends, just to kind of do what like he did this weekend, which is play an unofficial host to other recruits. It's really cool. It's really hands-on. Comparatively, like last year, Luke Altmaier, and there was some limitations with the pandemic being kind of raging at that point, but Luke Altmaier being the quarterback commitment, was at Ole Miss like 3 times, never really went to Florida State after his first visit. And I know the staff really would have wished that Luke would have been much more vocal. So to have a quarterback who is showing up in person over and over again, and then being a really good face for the recruiting class, that's going to have a substantial value, in my opinion, now and down the road as well.
Yeah, it's definitely, like I said, that kid just loves Tallahassee. But Florida State, spring games, typically you get a lot of commits. I mean 3, 4, 5, but it's a little different because I know the players technically were not allowed to meet with Coach Norvell or any of the staff for that matter, since they're just technically fans. But we did get one commit, running back Rodney Hill from Statesboro, Georgia, 42nd ranked player in Georgia, 493 overall in the 247 composite. I know anytime Florida State gets a commit, you could typically, show 5 plays that fans should get really excited about. Have you had a chance to do that with him yet? Yeah. And if not, what can you tell us about him? Because it's, he was the one person that did pop this weekend.
Yeah, so far, and I don't mean it's Sunday night here, I don't expect any more right now. There may be some dominoes that kind of fall like in the next week or so. We'll see, or maybe even the next month or so, that guys who are like on campus. But yeah, Rodney's the lone one, and he shows up to campus basically with the predetermined to commit, I think is kind of what he had envisioned, because he was at Virginia. I want to say he was visiting. He was a Virginia commitment, and I may be wrong on this, but I'm fairly certain he was at Virginia when he decommitted from Virginia, which is something. Must not have been that much fun of a visit. But so Rodney Hill, to me, he's a really nice take. He is a little bit lower ranked than I think maybe some of the stargazers out there would like. Like you said, Richie, that he's a top 500 prospect nationally, 3 stars. It's kind of tough to evaluate his film because he's at a small school in Statesboro, Georgia, like really small, like private school, like in a private conference. And he just beats up on these other kids, which is exactly what you want a Florida State caliber player to do. So I think that's encouraging, but it's just kind of tough to tell like just how fast he is, just how explosive he is. But I do like that he's really versatile. They like him as a running back, but he does some work as a wide receiver as well, where he does a really nice job tracking the ball downfield, making some athletic catches. He contributes on special teams as a returner. He plays a little bit of cornerback for them as well, but he's a really good runner, very elusive, but powerful too, and patient as a runner. So you see a lot of good skills there. They're very high on him. I could honestly see him as someone who finds a way to kind of crack into the running back rotation by like his second year at Florida State. So FSU really likes him. I think that's going to allow them to be a little bit more choosy in who they pick for their other running back in this class as well. So he has extra value there. I like him. It's a really good take for them. And especially after they didn't have a freshman running back in the 2021 class, to go ahead and secure one at this point in the process is really good for them.
Yeah, and we don't really get into recruiting too much on this podcast, but I feel like Travis Hunter is someone we mention every week. So I want to have a question for you. This is just our Travis Hunter appreciation moment. Yeah. But looking ahead to 2023, we had 4 5-stars on campus in the 2023 class, and we don't have to get into the individuals, but is Coach Norvell finally getting close to a level playing ground? Obviously, when he came in, before his spring even really got going, that all the on-campus visits were shut down. So he was already playing from behind, being in a new state, a new region. but now it seems like he's getting momentum with these 2022 kids and 2023. So has that playing field leveled out a little bit for Norvell and his coaching staff?
For sure. I think that's a really good way to put it, a level playing field. So he comes to Tallahassee, like you said, and it's such a big jump because this wasn't like say Dan Mullen, who was already in the SEC and had coached at Florida when he goes to Florida. Mike Norvell had coached, out in Arizona State, and then he was offensive coordinator there, and then he's the head coach at Memphis. So it's a different level. It's a group of five, even though a good group of five program going up to Power Five. And at Memphis, they didn't have to dip into Florida a whole lot. They did occasionally, but really they lived on kind of junior colleges and guys in Mississippi and Tennessee, a little bit of Alabama. So this was all new to kind of go into Florida State, where the best Florida State teams typically pull from South Florida, in addition to supplementary areas as well. But you have to have a South Florida presence. He didn't really have that. Tries to go and didn't hire a staff that had that a ton of that either, other than Ron Dugans and Odell Hagen's having some of that already. They didn't have a bunch of South Florida alpha dog recruiters, which you need there. So that created a little bit of a disadvantage, but one that they were going to work really diligently to try to fix by getting coaches out to doing these clinics with high school coaches, having spring practices open and establishing relationships. Well, then, COVID happens and shuts everything down, and you're having to do all this recruiting and more so importantly, like relationship building from the ground up remotely over Zoom, over phone calls, FaceTime. So that was really difficult. Now a year into this, like you guys, I think you set this up earlier. Well, it was that players aren't allowed to visit campuses during this for like a full year now. You've been able to go unofficially, but you've been able to go and do behind the scenes campus visits with coaches there and hosting guys technically. So it's been a full year of everyone kind of having that same even playing field. And so what that's done is, guys who are now 2022, 2023 prospects, a lot of them haven't gone anywhere before, maybe one or two other campuses rather than, last year's class, had already probably been to a bunch of different places. So now with that in mind, you've been able to do the FaceTime like how everyone else has. There's not really a heads up or an advantage, I guess, that other schools have innately built in for Florida State or over Florida State. So yeah, they've done a really good job at building relationships, and that even playing field is starting to kind of show they have some legitimate juice on the recruiting trail because they've done a really good job of communicating and selling their vision remotely, and then getting guys to creatively get to campus. That's been icing on the cake, and it's starting to kind of show with 2022 where it's a top 10 recruiting class. 2023 has the potential, like you said, Richie, there's a handful of blue chip kids from that class on campus recently. I think that has a chance to be a really special one too.
We have talked about that and talked about how good of a job Norvell has done in getting people to buy in, whether that be transfers. We talked with Andy a lot about Mckenzie and Jermaine Johnson and some of the other guys that have come in, and then also, top recruits. What we have also talked about is that we've got to win for them to stick, right? I don't know how much of this class you can love. I mean, I'm not calling out anybody specifically, but you can love Tallahassee, you can love Mike Norvell all you want. If we go 3-9 this year, it's not going to be pretty at the end of it. Now, I'm not predicting a 3-9 season, but I do think it's going to be a struggle to get to a bowl game and a struggle to do anything much more than a bowl game. And so something that we've got to do is win. A big proponent in that is potentially Mckenzie Milton. We talked about him on Friday night, not knowing how ready he was. What were your immediate thoughts after the game on Mckenzie Milton?
Yeah, I remember guys like Willie Taggart had a top 10 class going into that Virginia Tech game. And then, dust in the wind. You have to win to sell your vision. It only goes so far. Yeah. I do think that they have I think this like the expectations are different. It wasn't like Willie Taggart saying, hey, we're going to just paint slap some paint on this and this jalopy is going to turn into a Ford Mustang all of a sudden. That's what Willie said. That obviously didn't happen. Norvell's been a little bit more realistic and this is the climb, this is a build, not setting a timeline of expectations. So I think 6-6 is kind of what I've been harping on the last couple of weeks. So if you can get to 6-6 and stay in that range, I think most of the guys who are currently bought in will say, hey, that's improvement. Norvell's getting his guys in there. We want to be coached by him. We like that there's some growth from where this was, which is rock bottom. So I think that's what you got to do to get there is around 6-6. And I have a hard time envisioning TJ, this team, getting to that 500 sweet spot if Mckenzie Milton isn't a big part of that, a big component of that. He transfers to Florida State for a reason, right? It's to revitalize his career, to have a chance to be a starting quarterback in an offense that, he has immense respect for with Mike Norvell. And FSU brings him in for that reason as well, because they think he could run this offense. They think because of his maturity, his leadership, but also just his quick trigger, his precision as a passer. They think all those things play very well in Mike Norvell's RPO game. Now, Mckenzie Milton arrives here. Remember, he hasn't played in 2 years. He did scout team stuff at UCF, but that's not the same as being QB1 or QB2 at Florida State and practicing extensively with a ton of reps. So he has a little bit of rust early on at spring. I think he admits that himself, and really more so like just trying to grasp the offense and knowing innately and just, he calls it like naturally knowing where to go and making it second nature. Just, you could tell the wheels are spinning there when he's throwing the ball. It's not decisive. It's not with oomph. Now, this past Thursday rolls around. I didn't think he had a very good day. Now, he wasn't helped out by his wide receivers not getting separation and dropping passes. But Mike Norvell comes out and says that was probably his best practice of the spring. So shows what I know as far as an evaluator. But regardless, Mckenzie Milton comes out on Saturday in the spring game and just lights it up. He was that first drive on that 3rd and 7 outside of Jayshon Corbin coming out on the little flat pattern there. And that was nice. It was a nice throw outside where only Jayshon can get it. He adjusted to the ball well. And then later on, he's in 3rd and long, 3rd and 17, and just drops a dime down the sideline to Malik McClain. McClain has to go and dive for it. He's covered very well, but he puts the ball where only his guy can get it, knows what he has in Malik McClain, has the awareness to know this is a big, tall guy I'm throwing the ball to. Malik makes the catch, and then the very next play does that little low and away pass off the corner pattern outside to Brian Robinson. Again, a beautiful throw. So 3 really good throws on that drive, and then he has the one drive or two later to Joshua Burrell down the seam, which was probably the best pass of the game, if not the entire spring for like anyone. He was really good. He looked sharp. He showed the ability to scramble, and I think more so than anything, guys, like he was decisive. He was decisive where he went with the ball. Don't tell me, like you guys both got excited when you saw him make those shots, right? Like that was fun. That was encouraging, and has to make you feel kind of good going into the summer now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think he's kind of the hope. I mean, the schedule splits up into like 3 different sections for me. There's 3 games that I just do not see a way in hell that we're winning, right? Like I don't see us, anything could happen. I talked about this last week with, I don't even remember who. I talked about this last week with somebody, but
I've got so many podcast guests and so many podcasts. I don't Andy Staples wrote a 2,000-word story about the Big 3 roll up.
I don't remember if this was somebody in real life or not. But anyway, when we came out of that 2018 or that 2017 season, we beat the hell out of Florida that year. And they were bad too. And so like 2018 rolls around and you'd have at least said like, hey, we're going to beat Florida, right? Like that's a win. And so I look at that Florida game now and I say like, well, they're going to beat us. But like, who knows? Maybe Milton comes in and shines. Maybe Emery's not the answer. Maybe they've got more turn. Maybe Grantham slides far. So I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm not Florida, but like I see 3 for sure losses, and that's Notre Dame, Florida, and Clemson. And then I see 3 games that are toss-ups, right? I see Miami, North Carolina. Actually, those are the other 2 toss-ups that I see. Like probable loss toss-ups is kind of how I'll say it. Like we're gonna be dogs in both of those, and then the rest of
those aren't toss-ups.
Yeah, I said it wrong. Those 2 are like probable losses that you could maybe steal. They're not sure losses, right? Like the other 3.
Right, like Clemson, you're saying there's no way in hell.
There's a couple of like auto wins. I think that's Jacksonville State, UMass, and probably Syracuse. And then the last couple are Wake Forest, NC State, and Boston College. And I think those could go either way. And so essentially what you're saying is if you lose the games you're going to lose for sure, you win the 3 you have to. You basically need to win 2 of the toss-ups because you're never going to go 100% in your 500 games. You need to beat 2 of those 3 out of NC State, Wake, and BC, and then you got to upset somebody, right? You got to upset North Carolina again, or you got to upset Miami, or you got to upset Notre Dame, you got to upset Florida. Clemson is obviously not happening, and that's just to get to 6-6. Like you could do pretty decent in all those toss-up games, and you're going to be a dog 5 times. Like Florida State will be an underdog at least 5 times this year. So they're going to have to upset a couple of teams to make a bowl. Thinking, well, with Milton being decisive and making good throws and coming in and being fluid and looking like he knows the offense, maybe those toss-up games get a little bit easier. Maybe they're not such toss-ups. Maybe you go into Wake Forest and say, like, this is a game we're going to win. Whereas Wake's been a toss-up the last couple of years. Maybe not. I mean, but we'll see. But that's kind of the hope, right? What about the other side of the quarterback battle? What were your thoughts on Jordan Travis?
I thought he looked good too. He's looked pretty consistent all spring, honestly. The throws that he's making and he's attempting are ones I don't think he necessarily does a year ago. The throw, and it was not probably the throw that you want him making, but rolling right on 3rd and long and throwing a crossbody to Cam McDonald, going down the other side of the field there. Not the throw that you like coach your quarterback to make, but sometimes it's 3rd and long. You got to try to make a play. He makes a play. The fact he's able to kind of stick it in there and make the pass with the velocity that he does, I was like, oh, what's this here? But he's done that a couple times now this spring where I'm like, hey, I did not see that last year consistently, and he channels that much more often now, and that's really good to see. I think the competition between him and Mckenzie Milton has been really good for both of them, frankly, but it's really helped Jordan continue to dial in, continue to be competitive. Ideally, this is an ideal world. Mackenzie Milton is your quarterback 1, but Jordan Travis gives you the ability to give him like 10 to 20 snaps a game, whether it's at quarterback, whether it's at slot receiver, whether it's 2 guys that, both of them in the backfield at the same time, Mackenzie Milton and Jordan Travis. I don't know. There's a creative coach can be creative with Jordan Travis. Jordan Travis's easy for me to see Jordan Travis's athleticism, and especially with the arm strength that he's now starting to show more consistently. Jordan's been good. So right now, if I were to pick a starting quarterback, Mackenzie Milton, I'm trying not to be a prisoner of the moment for the last practice and a half or so that we've seen him, especially the spring game. But I think leaving the spring, Jordan Travis still deserves to take the first snap when preseason camp arrives. Now, what happens after that? What happens in preseason camp? If Mckenzie Milton continues to be a gamer and does well in scrimmages and elevates and becomes more consistent in practice, then yeah, I think it's Mckenzie Milton's job. I think that's where, again, that's the ideal situation for all parties involved. Maybe Jordan wouldn't see it that way immediately, but I think even long-term for him to get a season of being the gadget guy with the ability to then continue to hone his skills as a passer and then be the guy that the year after Mckenzie Milton leaves, that would be really good for Jordan Travis. So yeah, that's kind of where I stand right now with the quarterback battle. Jordan Travis was impressive on Saturday. I thought he was good, and he continues to. I've been impressed with him, guys, throughout the entire spring. Is what I'm trying to say. He's shown glimpses of being consistent and being more dynamic with his arm, in addition to doing things with the legs. We already know he's done that all spring. It's been impressive.
Yeah, I think we've all been impressed with him really throughout his time here, stepping in and doing some good things, even last year during the season. The problem is if you have to rely on him the whole year, does he get hurt? You know, again, can he stay healthy? But what you mentioned, using him as that to spell, not that you really need to spell quarterback, but just to kind of a change of pace like Florida did with Jones this year. Although I think that I'm not going to say he's a better thrower than Jones is right now, because Jones is obviously going to be their starter this year, but yeah, he might be close. I think Norvell is going to have more trust in him to go out. Every time Jones came in the game last year, you knew Florida was running the ball. Jones threw the ball 4 times when it wasn't late end of game, Florida's up by 50 type situations. When they brought Jones in the second quarter, he was running it every single time. And I don't know if that would be the case. I think Norvell would let Travis throw it a little bit because it's not so predictable. So yeah, I think it'd be interesting to see. That's all I've got football-wise. Rich, you got anything else before I make this real weird, or no?
Mm-mm. No, I was just disappointed in both of you guys, obviously, because, I was in a wedding on Friday, and the best man brought a budget bourbon from Louisville. From Louisville,
he got it just outside
of
from
Churchill Downs.
Thousands of miles away that we can't get. But
I sent it out, and I'm asking the 2 people that are the experts on bourbon, and neither one of you knew what I was talking about. So I was just disappointed with you both in that situation.
What was the bourbon? What was it?
I'll go pull it up again real quick because it was actually really good, and he said it was only like $30, but it said it's from the same mash as Pappy is in. So it was David Nicholson, 1843.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we didn't know that, TJ, did we?
No.
I
would try it. I mean, I would try anything.
Oh, that's right. We tried to get Richie to give us a free sample. Are we getting it?
He left us on red.
The groom's father definitely topped that off. So there's no more left.
Well, weddings are for.
So what are you drinking tonight, Brendan?
I have a glass poured ready to go. And look at this.
Oh, look at that glass.
Bourbon on a budget.
Hold on. Look at that. That is beautiful. Hold it up again.
All right.
Very nice.
I made you full screen. It's beautiful.
I've been letting it's a Maker's Mark private cask or cask select from a store down in Orlando that I got a couple of years ago. I'm trying to kill the bottle. I'm using that to try to enhance the I poured that tonight, TJ, to enhance the yellow corn or mellow corn or whatever that nasty swill is that we'll drop in a week or so. We're trying to fix a nasty whiskey. So I was like, I'm going to try this really spicy wheated bourbon to see what it does. So TBD on that.
You mixed that.
No, what I have here is not mixed. I want to enjoy this tonight. Okay. What I did was I poured it in, I got it going, I'm letting it blend, I'm letting magic happen. We'll see what happens with that. I'm not super optimistic.
Tell us quickly about, I've plugged it a couple of times on here, but tell us about your 3 podcasts that you're on. Kind of giving yourself some plugs, but I'll let you plug yourself a little bit here while you're on.
I have to start. Thank you. I'll plug myself. Appreciate that. I will start off with On the Bench because that is the one that helps pay the bills. Although if you guys have any sponsor, anyone wants to sponsor that one, let me know.
We're probably not giving those up, like if they're in this market.
I was saying, like, maybe Guthrie's wants to sponsor 2 different podcasts. I like chicken tenders. I like fries. I don't like slaw. So it seems to me that inherently would be a really good fit. But yeah, On the Bench, it's Knowles 24/7's podcast. We have fun there. Like, we drop scoop and news and information, but ultimately we want it to be kind of fun and different. I think it is. And it's myself, Josh Newberg, Chris Nee, Zach Blaustein. We kind of rotate that up sometimes. But yeah, please check that out because that is a lot of fun. And it's one that has been a work in progress for a long time, 3 years or so now. And I think we've kind of hit our stride. The Worst Stock Show. I always want to say the Worst Stock Podcast. It should be the Worst Stock Podcast, but it's the Worst Stock Show. That was Newberg's idea. And it's basically just Josh Newberg and I kind of BSing about stocks and losing money, making money. Having fun. Essentially, we have like that conversation on the phone every morning anyways for like 20 minutes. So we said, hey, might as well roll the recorder there and do that. And then finally, one more time, Bourbon on a Budget. So I have more podcasts on the Big 3 Roll-Up Network than I do on the 24/7 Sports Network. Shh, don't tell anyone, though.
So I have a quick question for you. First of all, I know you referenced that Nico Marchio interview, and I did listen to that. And for the listeners here, definitely go back and check that out. He is far more mature and polished than I ever was as a high school junior. So that was
amazing.
Impressive.
Yeah, it's incredible.
But I do have a question because I feel like this is kind of me. Sometimes we're doing a podcast and I'm like just dragging along, and then I get a chance to talk about Florida State basketball and I just get super excited. Is Chris Nee really that excited when he just goes from just being miserable to giving him that minute to talk about basketball to see him just perk up?
Yeah, we play it up a little bit too. Like, Dirty Little Secrets, I actually love basketball. That's my favorite sport, but like I don't cover FSU basketball just because we don't need multiple people covering FSU basketball. Like the needle mover is football. So that's kind of how like that angst on my end turned into it. Was like, Chris, we don't need to spend so many hours with all his resource and allocation and go into that. But Chris will not budge from loving FSU hoops, and he will be the one covering it. And he legitimately, like, we'll be talking about, like, pre-show, we'll be talking about stuff, what we're going to be talking about on the show, and just different, like, recruiting information that they have that they want to share, maybe don't want to share, and trying to do plan, like, we can talk about, can't talk about. And then Chris starts talking about hoops, and he doesn't stop talking about hoops. And Josh and I are just kind of like looking around, and yeah, so he loves it. It's legitimately a passion for him. He has when they're doing well, he's happy. When they're doing poor, he is arms folded, Chris Nee. So yeah, man, he legitimately loves it. And I think if he had the platform to talk about it more, he would not mind getting more than like 2 or 3 minutes I allocate to him sometimes.
I only give Richie 1 minute to talk about hoops. So
good. Do you follow the metrics, TJ? Because like when he started, now it's been different. Like in all fairness, when we started like this running gig, like or gag that like, hey, like don't talk about hoops for more than like a minute or two. We would see the metrics on our podcast. Like when we started talking about hoops, like it would legitimately start going down. Like people would check out. So that was also one of the reasons why I was like, we don't need to be losing, especially early on. We were trying to build an audience. Like we don't need to be alienating like 70% of it. Probably not the best idea.
We're live now. I get the live numbers as we're on. I mean, I can see that we've dropped about half of our listeners
from where it was with
just Andy? When Ricky from where it was when we started talking basketball like 3 minutes ago. So like that's just Richie. You're never allowed again.
Thanks, Richie.
We have fun with basketball, but football definitely is the needle mover. Like I'll have the most fun like interviewing legitimately like active FSU head coaches, and they'll like be the best interviews ever. And then like nobody I'm just like everybody wants to know about football, but I mean, whatever. Like I have fun with it, so I don't really care.
I was legitimately like jealous that Richie took at a previous podcast that he was a part of. I don't know if I can mention it or not. Like it's like an ex-girlfriend.
Sure. Yeah, we're big Trey Rowland fans.
Yeah, we are. And Richie they turned it into the Basketball Minute, and I was like, damn it, that's such a good idea. Like that's essentially what we were doing with Chris, was making him rush and timing him, but just not like making it a segment. So the creativity. Yeah, the creativity on your guys' end was good job, but like that was legitimately like bummed out that I didn't think of it, and then have something to maybe try to sponsor. But that's not
we should next year we should have like competing basketball minutes between Richie and Nee. Like you guys just like following if anybody's like so much bigger. So if like if it ever goes to a vote, like it's not going to come out pretty, but like they would be kind of fun like to see like who did better with stuff.
Well, Richie could keep it under a minute. The thing is, Chris would lose points, and that was like we were like at a scoring system. He'd be penalized for going over because there's no way he's containing it to 1 minute. It's just not going to happen.
Classic. All right, man. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight. Richie, you got anything before we get out of here?
No, I'll say good to finally meet you via StreamYard in our COVID era.
Hey, don't plug them. We pay them every month to not have to say their name.
Oh, okay. Well,
you can bleep that out, TJ.
No, I'm not doing
Zoom-esque. Oh, I just mentioned
We don't pay them though, so it's okay. Brendan Sonnone of Knowles 247. You guys go check him out. I'm sure you guys will have a bunch up for the spring game. I saw a bunch of pictures and different things that you guys had going on there. And then stay tuned there. We don't get as deep into the recruiting. Kind of mentioned it here and there. Obviously brought it up this week because it was a big recruiting weekend. We talk about it around signing day, and then we'll probably talk about it in December again. So if you guys want to get more into all that recruiting news, go follow the guys at Knowles 247. Brendan Sonnone. Is it B Sonnone 247? If I remember correctly.
At B Sonnone, BSONNONE, and that's it. No 247 in there. I'm a lone wolf.
So go follow those guys and check out Knowles 247 for all your recruiting news. Brendan, we don't have a Bourbon on a Budget this week, but I will see you this week at some point. We'll talk.
I'm sure. All right. Thanks for having me on. This was fun, guys. Take care.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, Brendan.
Brendan Sonnone of Knowles 247 and On the Bench and the Worst Stock Show and Bourbon on a Budget. So he plugged all those things. But if you're a bourbon drinker, you like whiskey at all, go check out Bourbon on a Budget. It's a podcast I did with him and Ben Koch, high school buddy of mine, where we break down bourbon and do a different review every week. It's a lot of fun. So we do have a show coming out this week. We're just not recording one this week. We're a couple of episodes ahead, and we want to catch back up to more live time. So anyway, Richie, let me change this view a little bit. Let's get this a little more zoomed in here. We've been on here for a little over an hour, so we'll wrap up. But tell me your quick takeaway on the spring game. You watched it twice. I only caught it once. So I'll hear your quick thoughts, and then we'll wrap up some FSU sports around the horn, and then we'll get out of here.
Yeah, I basically only watched it once because when I watched it live yesterday, it was after the post-wedding brunch where I had more than a few Bloody Marys. So that's why I wanted to get up early this morning to rewatch it. But I thought, it's tough to take away too much from a spring game. I did think, my biggest takeaway was Mike Norvell hit it out of the park in the transfer portal this year. Mckenzie Milton, Jermaine Johnson looked untouchable. Jamie Robinson looked great. We have some other guys that came out there. two freshmen that I thought looked great. Kevin Knowles, the defensive back, he was not very highly heralded coming out of high school, but he picked off Rodemaker on the one play, and it wasn't the smartest throw, but it was also an outstanding play by Knowles. Then Malik McLean, excuse me, super excited about him. I saw his high school tape, looked good, but he looked like he was outstanding out there yesterday. He could be a big time playmaker in a room where we need one because we're not sure what we have. And then, other thing, people were joking about it on the timeline, and I don't want to get negative, but I did not see a whole lot of NFL bodies based on what I saw on TV. Obviously, it's different and you're there in person, but that doesn't mean this can't be a really solid college football team. But it's clear that this roster is under overhaul. We just talked about it with Brendan. The 2022 class is off to a hot start. 2023 could be outstanding as well. So if we can get the most out of these guys, whether that be 6-7 wins and rebuild that roster, I think that's what will be huge. Because again, I didn't see a lot of players out there. They had the NFL draft analyst, the head of the Senior Bowl on there. They said, hey, give me a name to look at for the next year's draft class on this Florida State roster. And I think he said Emmett Rice. And nothing against Emmett Rice. I'm glad to have him back. I think he's a very quality college player, but that's not who you'd want to hear as the most NFL ready guy. Yeah. They looked more disciplined. They look like they're starting to buy in a little bit. Again, it's a spring game. Everyone's having fun. You don't really know, but overall I came away with more positives than negatives from the game. And I'm excited to hear what this team looks like, going through the summer and fall camp. And I'm pretty sure we'll both be in Tallahassee for that Notre Dame game.
Can't wait for it for sure. Couple questions we got on here. Christian Suero said that he's absolutely a better passer than Jones. I think I buy that as well. Jones looked pretty good when he got into that Oklahoma game. So I don't know. I'd like to see Jones a little bit more this year, but I think I'll buy that. I definitely stand by the fact that I think Norvell would be more comfortable with Travis passing than Mullen was with Emory. Some of that factored in is the fact that Trask was such a superior passer to Jones, and that Jordan Travis had played an entire season. And so he'd have some more comfortability there, but I'll believe you, Christian. I'll take your side on that one.
And I think the guy's a clown, but Dan Mullen knows what he's doing with the quarterbacks. So I think the development for Jones will be there. But yeah, right now, if you'd have to say we're playing this weekend and I either have to have Emory Jones or Jordan Travis, I'm taking Jordan Travis for sure.
Fully healthy, I think I would as well. Another question real quick from Hunter. Hunter asked if Travis would be willing to play another position if he got beat out by Milton. I don't think so. I think that just like Brendan talked about, splitting him out or bringing him in spots to get 10 to 15 snaps, 10 to 15 is a lot, 5-10 snaps a game would be the way that they play that. Maybe give him a series here and there, maybe have him spell Milton, and then he is the guy if Milton goes down. But yeah, I don't think him transferring another position would really be ideal. Now, if he fell down to, well, see, even with that, I wouldn't do it. I was going to say, if he fell down like third on the roster, behind Purdy too, then maybe you would. But still, if Milton goes down, you could, or if Purdy is your second string, you could still use Travis as kind of that gadget guy. So I think he'd be close enough to where I still don't think he would. I think he'd still get burned at quarterback. And I don't know that there's a position he could transfer to that he would be able to go in and make an impact like that. I don't know what his hands look like, but that's really the only position I can imagine. Other than just kind of making him an H-back and rolling. But yeah, I don't think so on that one. Because I think you can still use him at QB, whether Milton's a starter or not. Which it seems to be the trend or the thought here. I mean, Jordan Travis looked fantastic, but it's almost like if Milton has the next 5 months to get ready, we'll probably see him starting that Notre Dame game. If that's the case, I think we have a better chance of winning. But if not, if Jordan beats him out, then Jordan's obviously done some pretty impressive things to keep and retain that job. So Florida State sports real quick before we get going. Softball swept their series against Duke. Beach volleyball lost their first game of the weekend to FIU and then won the last two against number 17 Stetson and UNF. Both of those 5-0 sweeps. Baseball lost a tough one on Friday night by 1 run. They won on Saturday. And then they lost their other match today against Louisville. Louisville, number 7 in the country. Florida State competed tough, but couldn't get the series victory in that one. And then a massive shout out to FSU's women's tennis team. I know I'm skipping some sports, but these were the big three that I came away with. FSU's women's tennis team defeated Miami on senior day. The score was tied 3-3. And the last match, Richie, are you familiar with tennis scoring and everything? I don't have to explain the whole thing to you.
I know one-on-one tennis scoring. I don't know how these team matches scoring works in college.
Essentially, every match is worth a point, or like like so. If me and you are one competition, and then Andy and Brendan are the next one. Like if I win and Andy wins, if we're on the same team, we're up 2-0. So anyway, Florida State was down, or it was tied 3-3 overall, but the last match they were down 2-5. So if they'd have lost any of the next 4 games, they'd have lost the match. They came back and won 4 in a row, won the title, won 4-3 against Miami on senior day. I had tickets. Coach Hyde was gracious enough to put me on the list to go to that game, and the weather rained me out. So I ended up going. They moved it inside, but I'll have to make one next year. They're wrapping up. Their season's almost finished up. So shout out to Coach Hyde and the FSU women's tennis program. Great win on senior day. They got a couple more, and then the playoffs get started. So a bunch of other FSU sports. I know the Masters was this weekend. Richie's texting me that he's got to go. I know the Bachelorette's on. So things are getting wild in the Barnes house tonight. So outside of that, had a fun time with the spring game yesterday. Richie, do you have any shout outs before we get out of here?
Yeah, real quick, just shout out my good friends Cody and Sarah. They're the ones who got married Friday that I was lucky enough to go up there and stand by his side. That was really cool. I returned the favor from when he did that for me. And then shout out my wife. We had our anniversary 4 years on Thursday at the rehearsal dinner of the wedding. Wild range of emotions this week with that. Unfortunately, we had to put our 17-year-old dog down on Tuesday night, and my wife has had him since he was a puppy. So shout out Ruben going across the Rainbow Bridge. We miss you, but yeah, a wild range of emotions this week.
Whew. Yeah, highs and lows there for sure. Glad you guys had a good time at the wedding. Happy anniversary. And then obviously our condolences for the dog. It's never easy. I have nothing else to say about that because I'll just get choked up on the air. I don't know that I have a shout out my wife. She's great. So we both didn't feel super well the last couple of nights and are on the mend. So shout out my wife. She felt bad and she was down here with 2 kids and I was in Tallahassee feeling like crap. So at least she had to take care of kids while she didn't feel good. So shout out her. Richie, take us out here with a song.
Yeah, in honor of Ruben, our dachshund that's on to a better life now. Give me some Lil Wayne, Man, I Miss My Dogs.
All right, we are out of here. We'll see you guys next week. Go Noles.